it was this whole new area. We do write about fashion, but we're not writing about the clothes. We're writing about the businesses and what the businesses are doing. And that's pretty much, what I really love about Ragtrader today.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Welcome back to Fashion Business Mindset. I am so excited to introduce our 100th episode today, and I would like to thank you for being part of this journey with me. Recently, I had the pleasure of joining Maritza Barone on Podcasting with Purpose to share my story and the journey of diving into the podcast space over the last 4 years. So I've dropped the link in the show notes for you. If you would like to tune in, you'll hear all about how Fashion Business Mindset started, the journey so far, and what's next. Now, I've had the pleasure of speaking with so many thought leaders and change makers over the past few years, and I appreciate each and every guest and each and every listener who's supported the growth of our platform. So here's to the next 100 episodes, and with your continued support and engagement, no doubt, together we will make it happen. My guest today is Christopher Kelly, the editor of Ragtrader. Founded in 1972, Ragtrader is an iconic B2B fashion trade publication for Australia and New Zealand, and is the premier destination for Australian fashion business content. From breaking news to in-depth features and expert analysis, it's a vital tool for our industry and something that has been a constant source of up-to-date insider information throughout my entire career. During our chat, Christopher shares his journey in journalism and his interest in the business of fashion and economics as we dive into key topics from the front line of fashion. It was synchronistic to welcome Christopher, the editor of Ragtrader, which has been going strong for 52 years, to my 100th episode. I enjoyed every minute of my insightful chat with Chris, and no doubt you will too. So let's dive in. Christopher, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Now, Chris, before we dive into all things Ragtrader, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about your journey before joining the Ragtrader team.
Sure thing. So, well, ever since I learned to write, I've always wanted to be a writer, and I've always loved the idea of writing, but I never actually saw it as a viable career path until I went to university and dived into journalism. But even then, there was my next challenge of, okay, I love journalism, but what do I want to write about in journalism? And I remember getting to the end of the university, and I decided to join up with a lifestyle guide called Hunter and Bly. And they were in startup at the time, and it started as an internship, and then it went to a paid working gig, and it was quite exciting, learning about the ropes in lifestyle guide writing. And then about 3 years into that role, we had COVID, and I think a lot of people went through those motions of reconfiguring their life because you had all this time at home, and you started thinking and I got to realizing that lifestyle writing I loved, lifestyle writing was interesting, but I just really wasn't liking it after about 3 years. And I was like, okay, I need to step back and start figuring out what I can do. And decided to, obviously spruce up the resume. Had to wait a couple of years because COVID was still, dampening everything. And I think around 2021, I started sending out the resumes to new prospects essentially. And then I think around April 2022, I decided to throw in the towel. I left Hunter and Bly, and about a month later, I got a call up from Yaffa Media, which is the publishing house overlooking Ragtrader. And they were like, "Oh, Asia wants to have an interview with you." And I was like, "Great!" Did the interview, and it was quite interesting because I did the interview, and then after the interview, I was, I think about 2 days later, I got like the offer for the role,
Yeah.
and it was kind of exciting because there was that part of me going, I'm not really like, I love fashion, but I'm not really going to go out and buy like the latest Vogue or the latest Marie Claire and read it front to cover, but back to back. But it was so good that I obviously said yes because like this was a whole new area. And then I think very quickly I realized it was this whole new area. And it's like it's not really we do write about fashion, but we're not writing about the clothes. We're writing about the businesses and what the businesses are doing. And that's pretty much, what I really love about Ragtrader today. Yeah. So
Mm.
that's my journey from there to there.
I absolutely love it. Well, we're very glad that you landed at Ragtrader, and we're going to dive into that amazing platform. I've got to say, Ragtrader has been my Bible over the journey for all things fashion business. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited that you're on the team. We're going to talk more about your role shortly. But before we do, for anyone who perhaps isn't like familiar with Ragtrader that's tuning in at the moment, let's set that scene. So Ragtrader is the premier destination for Australian fashion business content,
Mm-hmm.
from breaking news to high depth features and expert analysis. It's a vital tool for our industry, and I can personally vouch for that. So let's share some insights, Chris, into the history of Ragtrader and how has it evolved over the journey to become the powerful platform that it is today.
Yeah. So Ragtrader was founded about 52 years ago by a man named Fraser McEwing. Fun fact, Fraser McEwing still does write for us on commission work, even though he's not part of the business in the, of the Ragtrader publication, in the official aspect. But yeah, and like it's, over those years, it's been pretty much the same as it has been then to now, which, as you said, is that premier destination of fashion business content. And, can actually say that we're probably one of the only ones in Australia that does the business of fashion, solely. Like, so there are other publications that do touch into fashion space, but we are the only one that's directly focused in the fashion space. And the publication covers print and online. And we've also, over the last 10 years, we'll probably get to this shortly, but we've also been pushing into events over the last 10 years. And, I think, it's one of those things. A lot of the other media publications are getting involved in that space. So it's pretty much generating your own content, really. And with the team, so it's me so I'm editor. We also have Asia, who's the publisher, and she's been with Ragtrader for about 18 years now. And we also have our business development manager who oversees that side of things. Yeah, it's just pretty much us three, and it's a lean, mean team.
Amazing. 52 years. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just dwell on that for a moment. That's a testament there in itself. I'm just a smidge older, just a smidge older than Ragtrader, but that is phenomenal. I knew Ragtrader had been around for a long time, but not that long.
Yeah.
And as you said, even with Asia being on the team for 18 years, it is a testament to the amazing, I guess, resource that this is, and it has stood the test of time. And as you said, you pretty much own that space on the
Yeah.
Australian landscape, which is pretty exciting for, I think, any business or media platform globally to be able to have that, kind of history.
Yeah.
So just to clarify for everyone, so there's the digital side and still the physical mag
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comes out
Yeah.
right?
So the print, so obviously when Ragtrader started 52 years ago, print would have been obviously the only medium to get into.
Yeah.
Now with online, I think a lot of other publications and getting into the online space more over print. And with Ragtrader, we do 4 print issues a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the print is very different to our online. So our online is very hard news, very, very time sensitive news. So like everything that happens straight up today. I think, I think one of the stories I can say that we got out today, it should be on the newsletter if you've seen it. We got one on the ACCC that was just launched. So the ACCC has, issued guidance into sustainability, like alliances. So how companies, form collaborations together in the pursuit of navigating the sustainability landscape. But yeah, we'll report on everything in the online space. And then in the print news is more the strategy. It's more the long form. I like to think of it as like it's that coffee table, publication. You can leave it on the coffee table for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You can go back to it in a year's time, and a lot of the content will be relevant as it is then, as it is now. And that's how we like to differentiate those. We also do on the side, we have our like little digital download reports focused on areas. So the one currently up is the beauty report, and those are also a little bit like print in a way, like with that strategy side of things,
Yeah.
but obviously focused in a particular theme. Yeah, but
Mm.
a lot of mediums
A
now.
lot of mediums. I love it. I don't know if you can see, I've got my little copy up there.
Oh yes,
I got my little Ragtrader library. Look, I've been a subscriber forever, so there's nothing better than the mag coming because I still like something physical. But of
yeah.
course, on a consistent basis, we're getting the newsletter and the articles, so we're completely kept up to date. So anyhow, for anyone in business, well, everyone tuning in, most people tuning in will be in business. So definitely have to check it out. And I'll obviously put the links into the show notes of where you can get your hands on a subscription.
Of
But
course.
yeah, absolute tool of the trade.
Thank you.
Now, Chris, no doubt people tuning in will be thinking, especially people who might be interested in the media landscape and journalism. I'd love to share more about your journey. So, congratulations, firstly, to your promotion as editor, which
Thank you.
I'm not sure if that's a short period of time in your side of the industry, but it feels like it happened in light speed.
Yes. I have been told that it's probably one of the fastest progressions from journalist to editor, especially probably at least at Yaffa Media, but I can't really speak for the rest of the media landscape. But it is going from, so when I started in July 2022, I started as a junior journalist. And that was sort of a whole change. So I did mention before that I was with a lifestyle guide. And lifestyle writing is super different to like writing for B2B publication, essentially, with hard news.
Yeah.
And I remember having like even that whole transition from that style of writing to that style of writing was intense. Like I can say, like, I think at the end of 2022, I was in self-imposed burnout because this was like probably the biggest step in my career, and obviously I'm going to put in all the effort. And then I think I got to the end of 2022 going, okay, and like we have that little break over Christmas, New Year's, which was great. So I think a lot of businesses tend to shut around that time, and everyone gets the 2 week holiday. And it was probably good that I had that time because I had that sit down going, okay, I think it's time for you to just pull back a little bit. You're doing a little bit too much. But yeah, no, it was quite exciting. But that pretty much led to me being promoted to associate editor in February 2023. So it was, despite the fact that it was hard work, it obviously paid off. And sometimes, as they say, hard work pays off. And a lot of that was, fine tuning the news set, the news sense. So like getting the sense for news, and especially in Ragtrader land, as I said before, I didn't really have a massive knowledge of the fashion industry when I first stepped in. And so it's obviously learning about the particular news that the readers would obviously want to read about. And, sometimes it's not just about what fashion brands are doing, but it can also be what's happening in the economy and, what's happening so we also report on cotton harvest. So how the cotton industry is going at times. And, there's all these different facets of the industry that we report on. And so a lot of that was perfecting that. And then when I got promoted to associate editor, a lot of the focus then was on really fine-tuning the hard news style of writing. And hard news style is very particular, it's very technical, and you can't like now I can say that I've obviously, now that I'm editor, I can say that I've obviously gotten to that point. It's such a technical way of writing. And I remember when I was in uni and they have what they call the inverted pyramid style of writing, and that's literally what it is. And it's starting with the most important at the top and then just working your way to the least important in terms of what the reader wants to hear. So there was the fine-tuning of style. And then to get to editor, I think a lot of that was also the soft skills, so the emotional grit and being able to really keep pushing. And I think, then obviously from, the writing side, I obviously started, having more of a hands-on approach and more of a leading approach with print. So with print now, as well as curating all the content for print outside of sponsored and all of that stuff and advertising, I curate all the print, and I also paginate. So I don't know if you've seen, some of the TV shows of editors. I think, I can probably list a great example with The Devil Wears Prada, and there's that scene with the back wall and of like, and you would have the issue laid out on the wall from front to back. And we don't do that, obviously. We do on the digital side because, we're a bit more advanced, obviously, and everything's, moving ahead. So everything's going digital, but I do that. I will paginate the issue from front to back, putting where I want to see the articles and lay it out. So then there's that. And then moving into the editor side, I've also moved towards looking after the events in a way. So now I curate a lot of the speakers, and we'll talk more about this in another question, but yeah, focusing on all those little aspects. But it has been a whirlwind, but as they say, if you don't get anywhere without hard work, unfortunately.
No, that's right. And has there been an element, because you've learnt so much over what I would deem as a short period of time, has there been mentorship within the team? Have you
Oh,
had
yeah.
to seek external, additional upskilling?
A lot of my drive towards editor, I have to commend Asia on her mentoring. And it's like, I've had a couple of mentors in my short, my career is getting into journalism, but with Asia, it's been so good having her because say if I, early on, you'd write up a story and there was a way that she, present it back to you. She would go like, the intro just needs a bit of work, or can you find a new angle, or the headline doesn't quite work. But instead of like saying it like that, she'd actually say why it doesn't work, and then give it back to you as a way for you to learn from your mistake. And then I'd write up again, and more often than not, she'd be like, "Oh, that's better, that's perfect," and then it would go up. But yeah, a lot of that's been there, and also having her teach me on all the other things, so like even with paginating issues and having to work with other areas. So as I said, Ragtrader is under Yaffa Media, and Yaffa Media is a still family-run publishing house, and they've run about several to a dozen different publications. So we also do ad news. There's also food and drink business, Australian photography, packaging news. There's a whole raft of them. But we all have like the, usually relatively similar like art teams and people who look after those sides. And yeah, it's just a lot of, working with those areas, and it's very team effort. And I think the fact that it's such a lean team, with Ragtrader,
Yeah.
it's so easy to just stay focused and, yeah.
And I'd say you'd be able to move quite swiftly too. There'd be
Yeah,
quick
yeah,
decision making with a lean team, and
yeah.
obviously ACA having so much experience. And it's great to hear that she's had that mentoring role with you. She seems like a real powerhouse in her position. Loved
Mm,
seeing her journey over the years as well.
yeah,
But with your role, Chris, let's dive a little bit deeper in terms of a day in the life of. Obviously, there's the writing side. You've mentioned the pagination. You're working with a
yeah.
lean team. I know you've got to be on the ground at certain events. You and I met at what was it called? Camp Cotton.
Camp
So
Cotton.
Cotton Australia hosted almost a week-long trip,
Mm,
basically, where we got to travel together and see the cotton industry from end to end, which was amazing.
that was fascinating. Yes. The role that I do at Rag Traders, every week every week's a different week, every day is a different day. So I will probably work around, so I think obviously 9 to 5. And we do like hybrid working weeks. So I work on Mondays and Fridays, I work from home,
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office. And all that's quite flexible in a way. And I think that's one of the the great things I like about Ragtrader is depending on things, they're happy with you to move it around. And I'm pretty set, so we obviously have the set, Tuesday and Thursday we have to be in the office. And then
Mm-hmm.
I usually nominate the Wednesday to be in the office, but sometimes you can go, well, I've got, say if I've got an event near home,
Yeah.
I can work from home on the Wednesday and then maybe come in on the Friday or come in on the Monday. So it's not so strict on like you have to be here on this and whatever.
Yeah.
And in terms of the day to day, in the morning, I'd be working on, so we have a daily EDM. So that goes out at midday. And so in the morning, I'll be working on getting in 5 stories for that EDM. And it sounds like a lot every time I tell people, they're like, oh my God, 5 stories. It sounds like a lot. And I'm like, a majority of them are like press releases that, and so or you get stories from like, and it's so easy to collaborate all those stories so say for instance, the ABS will release every month, they release a retail trade statistics.
Mm-hmm.
And usually at the same time, you would also get commentary from ARA, NRA, and all the other peak bodies would come out and start sending in their commentary. And so it's putting together story, even though it's a long story, it's pretty easy because you're just copying paste and then you're just playing around with it essentially. But then there'll be those stories that you do get in that are like features or the longer form, which can take a bit longer. You do the recording and you have to sift through the recording and make sure everything's legible and then
Yeah.
turn it into a story. Yeah, and so that's for the EDM. And then usually in the afternoon, you'd be working on everything else. And sometimes that's working ahead. So as I said, the 5 stories a day, most of the time I'll usually have like 1 or 2 stories ready to go the next day. So I'm not, rushing in on having to get 5 stories. Other times I would also be looking at doing like setting up interviews, looking after print when that comes around. And there's also getting speakers for live. So for our events that we have. And obviously, as you mentioned as well, there's industry events. It's kind of like annoying at times because, there are times when you really want to go to one, but, you've always got something else on. And the Seamless launch that, like when that did that one, we're obviously going to go to that one because that's a big news for our industry. Then you would have like showings, you would have, events will be launching new ranges or stuff like that. You pick and choose. That's pretty much what you can do. And you can't do everything, but you just have to prioritize really.
I'd imagine that would be a hard part of the job because you'd want to be everywhere all at once, but it's just not
Yeah.
physically possible. So
No.
people who are listening, Chris, who perhaps think, oh, I'd love, I've got something newsworthy that I would love to be featured in Ragtrader. How are you being approached with press releases or,
Yeah, yeah.
pitches for the publication?
Our like online, there's through reception essentially. You can
Yeah.
send an email, your press releases there, and we'll get those a couple of different ways. But more often than not, like we'll also be finding those stories. Or you can also reach out via LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
I get a lot of people who will probably add me and tell me their little story tips, and always good to get those as well. But yeah,
Yeah. Good to know. You might get bombarded now, but good, good
I
to know.
probably will.
Now, Chris, I'd love to talk about the Ragtrader Live event. I was talking to you before we started recording that it's certainly been on my annual calendar for the journey. It's a biannual event and was recently held in Sydney. So you've
Yeah.
come kind of hot off the heels of that one. Can you share a bit more about this event and
Yeah.
your involvement and why our audience should ensure that they do have this one on their annual calendar?
Yeah, sure. So the Sydney event we had this year, the format was around 4 Q&A sessions. We got some big powerhouse speakers. So as part of my role in the event space, I curate the speakers with that. So alongside Asia, and Asia will probably tell me, that we'll work through like particular names or particular ideas or areas we're looking at, and then I'll reach out to prospective candidates really.
Mm-hmm.
And for this one, yeah, so it was also a little bit shorter, a little bit more punchier as well. So last year we would do like what we'd call like a half day conference, whereas this one was more of like a breakfast event. We went for like the speaking part went for about two hours, and but it was over like 3 hour space where you had networking opportunities before and after,
Mm-hmm.
and you had breakfast included. It was a roundtable event. The Q&A sessions were quite punchy and quite timely as well. So I think the opening one we had was Marquee Retail Group Chairman Bernie Brooks,
Yeah.
sitting alongside the now former CEO of Tiger Lily. She's recently gone into the tech space now, and having them talk about what it's like going into administration and navigating that process. And that was like such a dynamic discussion there. We also had the CEO of RM Williams, Paul Grossman.
Yeah.
We had the CFolly CEO, Brendan Santamaria, Modibody founder, Christy Chong. We had like a great dynamic range of speakers in that one. And as I'm sure pulling in those speakers is quite a arduous task, I will say. You know, there are, I mean, one of the things that they say, you are going to be faced with a lot of no's when you're doing this stuff. And
Yeah.
but the idea is you keep persevering, you keep that positive mindset, you keep that trajectory in mind of what you want. And more often than not, you can find ways to make it work. And sometimes you'll get people who go, "Oh, I'm not available that day, but or I've got something in the morning on that day," and so you have to go back and go, "Well, how about we will put you in on the 10 o'clock session," and just finding those sort of ways to pretty much accommodating them. But yeah, there's a lot of tricks in trying to get speakers on, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's no short of arduousness, I'm sure.
No, oh, look, I can relate. I've been in that position many times, hosted
Mm.
many events and industry panels, and yeah, it's like moving the chess pieces. It's like, how do we make this work?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really satisfying, though, isn't it, when you have a stellar lineup of,
Mm.
thought leaders and change makers.
Yeah.
And I think with Ragtrader Live, it's such a unique opportunity to be in the audience, hearing from, people who are at the forefront of the industry.
Mm.
We don't have many events like this left in our
No.
industry, right? So it's really one of the leading events to get access to this information. There's usually a bit of a Q&A, so there is an element of being able to ask questions to these amazing, industry people as well. But
Mm.
yeah, well done. Well done to you and the team, Chris, because yeah, events in general, they're mammoth to organise, and especially when you've
They
got
are.
a stellar lineup of
And I
speakers.
will say, like I do have, we also have an events team who look after the
Mm,
other side of it. So it's not just all of Ragtrader focusing. We do have an in-house events team that look after all, the hiring of the place and all getting in the audio and all of that stuff. It's
yeah.
it is one of those tasks, but it was pretty good to pull off such an event. And I think, going to the other part of your question, if I remember, you about like why people should be coming to these
Yeah.
events. And that's one of the things that I got told, at the last event was, oh, sometimes it's nice to come to an event or a conference like this where it's not all smiles and rainbows. And
Mm,
especially in this particular year we find ourselves in. And it's like, and that's to say what our events are, is that you're going to get the insight, you're going to get we dive into those sort of particular, like the nuggets of what retailers want to hear or want to learn. And we'll get people, up on stage in the past couple of years who've come up and, they'll share a mistake that they've done. And then they'll tell you how they fixed that mistake, and then why you shouldn't maybe not consider doing this particular avenue. And that's what we want to learn. Like, especially in the current year, it is a tough market. And I think one of the sessions we had as well was we had Mosaic Brands and Alchemy Group. And we had both of the CEOs talking about the market at the moment. And it was quite fascinating learning the way that even they look at sustainability. Like, sustainability is a big hot topic at the moment, and a lot of people, there is that great venture into it. But then the other side of it is that that a lot of people don't really are hesitant on talking about, is that it does cost,
mm,
turning from, one side and going into a new venture in your business, going towards sustainability does have costs with it. And it's just trying to figure out those things. And I think that's what makes the events so powerful is that you get the insights, you get the learnings, you get the that knowledge that you need. Yeah.
I would agree. It's raw and real, isn't it? And that's what we need in business, to kind of pull back that veil and
Yeah.
speak openly and honestly about, the challenges and the opportunities that, everyone faces. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that aspect of the event. So thank you for sharing that. So definitely make sure you subscribe to the Ragtrader mailing list, everyone, so that you hear about the next live event. There's going to be one coming up in Melbourne, and that will be announced soon. So yeah, we can't wait.
Yes.
Can't wait to be coming along to that one. Now, speaking of what's happening in the industry,
Mm.
I guess from a broad perspective, we know that the retail sector has experienced significant shifts in recent years.
Mm.
So I'd love to hear, Chris, in your opinion, what are some of the most noteworthy changes and trends that you've been covering at Ragtrader that brands and retailers should take note of?
Yeah, definitely. I think, so this year, the toughest change is that, discretionary spending is going down, but everybody knows that and everybody's
Yeah.
been hearing about that. But I think there's one particular aspect that I've been noticing in that area is so discretionary spending's gone down. Fashion sales have fallen by $100 million over the like per on a month by month basis, from February to May this year. From May last year to May this year, fashion spending has fallen by $33 million. But the one thing that I've sort of noticed is that despite the fact that there's overall inflation across the board, cost prices are going up.
Yeah.
In fashion over the last year, there's been notes of deflation. So prices are going down in fashion. And a lot of that, I think, is being driven by in a lot of discounting. And I think you're starting to notice over the last couple of years, there's this focus around Black Friday sales, Cyber Monday sales. I think I just did one of the graphs on one of today's stories we got out shows this around November. You see this massive spike in
Yeah.
spending in, Black Friday around November. And then December, it just drops.
Mm.
Discounting is a thing that I feel like the industry needs to really consider and really be a bit more tighter on, because I feel like there's about trying to be with the competition. And I think, when it comes to competing on price, it is a hard area to work on, but I think it's just one to keep in mind, especially the fact that we've had spots of deflation in the market. But despite the fact that there is this, discretionary spending, fall, it's not all doom and gloom, and there are a lot of winners in the industry. Fashion spending for the last year has been hovering per month around $2.9 billion. Obviously, there's money still being spent right now, and I think it's trying to find new ways to attract it to really get with the customer. And I think that's where a lot of retailers should really focus their mind and, talking on the international players that are coming in the market. And that's also challenging the market in terms of like discounting pressures and all of that. But I feel, especially for the likes of Shein and Temu, you have a lot of people focusing on them as like, oh, they're fast fashion, they're cheap and all of that. But the true direct competitors of Shein and Temu technically are the ones who are in the low price space. If you're selling pants for $200, you couldn't really classify Shein as a direct competitor. And so it's keeping that in mind that not all retailers are in that, predicament. And the luxury end, you're also seeing luxury sales are still going well because most people who have a lot of disposable income can still spend. I think right now the trend in terms of trends and changes in the industry, there is that more focus on the customer and the focus on how to attract the customer and how to keep the customer on board and finding new ways rather than, oh, I'll just open up a store and someone's going to come. Like you open up a store, but you have all these different elements to attract them to the store, in terms of whether it's focusing on product ranges or new styles or even just the configuration of how the store looks, but then it also online as well. How are you showing up in terms of marketing, in terms of pushing it out into the different streams? And I think that's one sort of particular area that's happening in the market. And then one of the other big ones is sustainability. And sustainability is, been going on for the last, well, probably more than a decade, I'd say. And, it's even way back when, I'm pretty sure there were people, I mean, I remember fur used to be a problem back in the day. You don't really hear much about that now, but anything can happen. But the push towards sustainability is really sort of picking up, over the last year, and especially in terms of like seamless. It is a voluntary scheme at the moment, but I remember, I think I got a story up recently that there is going to be that push towards regulation. So I think a lot of retail, like, especially fashion retailers, probably need to keep that in mind, that it's not, at the moment, it's voluntary, but I think, it seems like that the only way to get everyone on board is probably through regulation. And then the other thing that's quite fascinating, I've sort of noticed in the industry, is transparency.
Yeah.
And I remember like 10 years ago, I've heard so many people say this, like 10 years ago, nobody would release where their suppliers are based. Nobody. Now it's, I can go on. So one of my favorite sources to get particular news is the Modern Slavery Register.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is like, I think it was like back in 2019, the government launched this Transparency Act, essentially, or Modern Slavery Act,
Yeah.
where if you're a business earning more than $100 million a year, you have to share where your suppliers are based and all of that. And that's created this massive change. And now you're having even brands who probably aren't at that level of revenue are actively reporting where their suppliers are based and product provenance. And I think there is a lot to say in how that's changing consumer minds, because now, I mean, even when I first joined Ragtrader, before I joined Ragtrader, I probably wouldn't be looking at, I'll just be like, oh, that's a shirt, I'll just buy this shirt. Now I'll be looking at it going, okay, where's it made? What's it made of? I'm now focusing more on buying cotton. And I feel like there is probably a lot of other consumers who are, thinking about, oh, there's a lot of this, talk around sustainability, climate change. How do I be more sustainable? So I think, yeah, transparency is going to be a thing, whether it's relates to whether the customers are willing to spend more. I've heard so many people on both sides saying, that, oh, the customers are willing, but then you're also having people who are going, oh, no, it doesn't seem so. So I think time's going to tell that there is going to be that push towards sustainability, and it's going to happen. So
You've hit on all of the hot topics there, but just on the transparency piece, I
mm,
just had, or actually just went live last week, was my episode with Sandra Capone, who's one of the co-founders at Good On You. So
mm,
Good On You app, which is basically a ratings platform. So you can go onto that app and you can find, you can shop your values essentially. So they give each brand a rating. And to your point, Chris, even in my experience, I used to be a retail buyer, and you would never share your sources. Your supply
oh,
chain partners were the industry secrets. That was your IP. Whereas
mm,
now, it is common practice to have that information on your website. And actually, it's becoming expected
mm,
because, as my discussion with Sandra kind of went down the path of, if a brand is not sharing this type of information,
mm,
if they're saying nothing, well, they can't be rated, and a customer can't make a
mm,
discerning kind of decision. So these things are expected, and it's certainly a lot of change coming at retailers and
mm.
brands. So change is kind of one of, I think, the consistent themes through kind of everything that you've mentioned. How have you, just in your experience, even with, your speaking with brands or even through Ragtrader Live, are you seeing the change that we're facing in our industry being embraced at kind of a high level, or is there still this bit of push-pull resistance?
No,
Would you?
I feel like there is a lot of pushing, like, because I'm just trying to think of some of the brands, like, there's been some massive ones who've joined on with Seamless. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's only, some people think that a 4 cent levy is a bit small, but like, this is what their data has said, and that's what they've gone with. But even then, that's still an extra cost for the business. But you're having you know, some big brands. You're having like Cotton On signed on. You've had, you know, Sussam Group, David Jones, and you know, it's so it is quite promising that that's happening. But yeah, like I think there is a bit of resistance here and there, and I think that's always going to happen. It's you're not going to have everyone just go straight over because, as I said, there's the margins, there's the costs, there's all those things that we have to consider before we get to that stage. But um, yeah, I have seen like that there is this ongoing push um towards being a bit more you know, being more sustainable, whether that's, you know, styles. Like I think one of the biggest ones over in recent years was Kmart Group, and Kmart, you know, so well, Kmart, you know, the low price department store, they're actually pretty much like I think more, I don't know if it's all their range or most of their range is now cotton, made with cotton. And
Mm.
it's, you know, so you know, you're having people sitting there going, oh, it's probably too costly to go to certain sustainable materials. And it's like, but Kmart's doing it and they've still managed to keep relatively low price points. It's, you know, so it's trying to navigate those sort of areas. But I think, you know, a lot of businesses are willing to figure out ways to make it work. And I
Mm.
think that's promising in a way, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It is promising. Look, businesses can always do better, whether that is
Yeah.
their raw materials transitioning away from, you know, polyesters and plastics and all of the things. But to
Mm.
your point, I think it's promising seeing leading brands and businesses get involved. You know, I think Seamless is a great example, you know, to
Mm.
see the businesses that have joined. And again, that's going to encourage others to get involved. But I think we're certainly going into that phase of the industry where it's no longer, you know, a nice to have, it's a non-negotiable. So
Mm.
all of the conversations that I've had, I think, on the podcast to date has been the message, you know, we have to do something, we have to move forward. And certainly, you know, any promises that are being made, whether that is around, you know, transparency or around environmental practices, need to be genuine and authentic, because there's a whole greenwashing side as
Yeah.
well. So it's very important to be, you know, to be doing your due diligence
Yeah.
around your marketing message or your message to customer
Yeah. And
as
there's
well.
also, I've been hearing as well, there's also green hushing is another term that's come out recently. So they have greenwashing, which is, you know, purporting to be being sustainable when you're
Yeah.
not really. But then you have green hushing where you have brands that are being sustainable, but are too worried to
Mm.
put it out there in case like customers, you know, come back and have a, you know, they have a backlash essentially. But I think in all that, so long as you're sticking to the facts,
Mm.
like, you know, so if you say don't over, don't under, just go, this is how much, you know, like say if you want to talk about emissions, this is how much emissions, and you stick
Yeah.
to that level, you know, that should be it. Like stick to the facts, I think. Yeah.
I agree, but I've learned something new, green hushing. I hadn't heard that
Yeah.
one. So I definitely understand the sentiment behind brands being nervous about what they
Yeah.
do say, and definitely being conservative there until they feel like they're in a position that they can, you know,
Mm.
confidently have their statements out there. But I had not heard of green hushing before. So there you go. I've learnt something
Yeah.
new. Thank you.
That's all right.
So you again, thank you for sharing those insights. There's some absolute gold for our audience to take away there, Chris.
Mm.
Now, let's shine the light back on you. So, based on what you've shared, Chris, your role is certainly dynamic and no doubt demanding at times. I would love for you to share with our audience any rituals or routines or support
Mm.
systems that you have in place that allow you to operate at an optimal level around mindset and well-being.
Yeah, I think the top one would have to be journaling. So I do what I think they call it the bullet journal method, but I've sort of tweaked it to my sort of way. But it's essentially just making like all the projects that I have are listed in this journal, and it's pretty much on a month by month basis. So every month I would write up the month on the top, and on one it'll be like a double page spread, and on one page it would be all the stories that I'm following up. So not so much press releases, because press releases I can shove it in and put it up and it's done. But with like, if there's any follow-up stories, so say if I'm doing email Q&As or, over the phone Q&As, or if there's particular stories that I'm like, oh, I haven't heard back from them, but I'll make a note of it so I keep going back to them. So I'll have that on one page, and then on the other page, I would have it in boxes of like, so focus. So right now, as where I'm working on speakers for upcoming events at the moment. And so I've got on one side, on the other side, it's, the events that I've got and the speakers and who I'm going out to. And that just, I think having it on paper makes it easier as well, because it's out of your head. But then it's also somewhere that you can go, oh, like say if you have oh my God, did I do that thing? And you go back and you go, oh, I actually did do that. I did reach out to that person. And then from that page, I would also have, for the month, I would do what they call like a daily log. And it's essentially focusing on all the tasks that I'm doing during the day. So, getting the 5 stories, reaching out to people, say if I've got an event lined up, and I'll note that in so I don't forget to go to that event. But journaling by far has been probably one of the best things, especially for efficiency, but also for, the mental health. If I wasn't doing this method, I would not be as efficient as I am today.
Yeah.
One of the other things that, especially in the first 6 months, so I remember I told you before I had like that self-imposed stress at the end of, December 2022, like, where I work is pretty good. Like they're not pressury. We obviously want to get stuff done, but there's no pressure. I'm pressuring myself.
Mhm.
But I remember getting to the end of it, and one of the first things that someone else told me, and they go, you need to turn off all your work notifications on your phone. And I was sitting here going, that just sounds so counterintuitive. And then I did it, and I'm like, oh my God, it actually works. Because I mean, obviously I'm so in tune with my job, and I could say that if it were like it seems like I could be married to my job at sometimes. But, if I, like in order for me to, read, check on the news or check online or, check my emails, I'll go onto my emails and see my emails. I don't need to get my emails on a Friday night or a Saturday. I'll, check it in that time. I also stick to the 9 to 5. I know that a lot of people there are a lot of people in the industry who don't have that luxury, especially like buyers who might have to travel overseas or and dealing with clients overseas. But if you have the luxury to stick to a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever the time schedule is, you stick to that so that when you get to the 5 o'clock, you're not focusing on work.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I do. So I'll do 9 o'clock, work on the newsletter, and then the rest of the day focus on everything else. And then when it comes to 5 o'clock, I'm like done. I just turn it off and I'm done.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing is knowing your support network and being able to have that, people that you can reach out to. So Asia and Michael, my business development manager, they're great colleagues to have. And I'm happy to, if I have an issue, like I can reach out to one of them. If I want to vent about something, I can also do that as well. Yeah, but it's also, having people that can back you up as well and going, oh my God, I feel like I'm like, say for events, for instance, you'll probably get you get a lot of no's. I've told you that, but
Yeah.
that you'll probably get like a string of about 20 no's, and you'll just be sitting there going, okay, I really need to obviously I still got to keep going, but it's good to have those people who will just go, no, no, no. It's like that the coaching and
Yeah.
pushing you on, and sometimes you need that. And some other things is that helps for me in terms of the de-stressing and all of that stuff is aromatherapy and meditation. Not for everyone, but it works
Love
for
it.
me. So
Love it. Love it. I'm hearing a lot of structure, and I think that makes sense.
mm,
I love the journaling, just getting it out of your head onto paper. I
mm,
love my digital devices and my calendars, but I'm the same. I need to see certain
yeah,
things on paper, like even my calendar, replicate a paper version. People will see it and be like, what's that? I'm like, I just need to visually see it, but I do love that. I like
yeah,
the not having the devices or the apps kind of going, trying to focus.
mm,
Because obviously you've got a lot of diversity, a lot of dynamics going on at all times. So
mm,
I think that putting that on paper is very powerful. And I love the 9 to 5, as you said. I can hear there's a boundary there, which I think is great. As you said,
yeah,
if you can do that, because some people do have that ability to work within the 9 to 5, but they don't. Like they will,
Yeah.
they might be on the couch at night checking their social media or doing all the
I'm
things.
guilty of working outside the 9 to 5, but
Yeah, me
it's
too. Me too. But as you said, if you can, it's a good
yeah,
practice to have because you've got those bookends of kind of you time. And as you've rightly said, the support network that you've got with your team is absolute gold. And we all need that in our lives because we can't do any of this work solo, that's for sure.
no.
Now, thank you for sharing that. Now, Chris, to finish off, I would love to hear
Mm.
what excites you most about the future of the fashion and the retail industry.
Yeah, definitely. I think the big hot topic at the moment is AI and automation, and that's sort of what a lot of businesses. It's quite funny because I've written a little bit about AI, but a lot of the writing is in the tentative stages of what's happening in businesses. I think the biggest one I got was on Step One, the underwear brand, and they revolutionized the way that they do their marketing materials. And so they're using ChatGPT to ideate all the content. They'll also use like Photoshop AI as a way to change advertising and different things. So like they'll have an advert that goes, well, this worked, so we'll put it into this, program and then tell it to make a new iteration of this into something else. So a lot of that's like the automated side, but I think there's a lot that's happening in the industry in the AI, but I think a lot of it's still in the tentative stages. And like I think there are a lot of businesses that want to talk about it, but and I've been reaching out to some of them but yeah, I think it's still in that tentative stages and they're still trying to figure it out. But there's just a good book that I've been reading recently actually called The Economy of Algorithms, which is a very fascinating book. And it goes into the business side of like what businesses are doing in the algorithm space. And the most interesting one is the way that people create bots, for instance. So they would create like I love the way that I'm pretty sure his name's Marek, the guy who wrote the book, and he actually calls them like digital minions, which are like, yeah, and it's like essentially you create this algorithm or you create this automated process to do a particular task. And
Mm.
in the fashion space, there's one interesting one that's happening at Nike, and what they're doing is you know how they release like very limited ranges. They might just release a one pair of sneakers that and everyone's going after, and you'll have people like there are people out there who are setting these algorithms to buy that essentially buy the sneaker. So they'll know that the sneaker's going to go on sale at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon or on this particular day, and they will set the bot to be able to buy that product on this particular day. And so you'll have people who probably it's like with Taylor Swift tickets. You have people
Yeah.
waiting online ready to go buy tickets. But I'm pretty sure even with the Taylor Swift tickets, there have been people out there who've used this particular way of buying. So it's not humans that are buying, it's humans that are setting algorithms to buy for them so that
Mm.
they could get in before everyone else.
Yeah.
But even on the business side, there's a lot of things happening in the automation space. And I think time will sort of tell where that's going to progress to ahead. If there's any brands that are out there who are doing stuff in AI, please reach out to me because I want to talk about it. I have been noticing like a slow sort of push back into local manufacturing in recent years.
Yeah.
Like it's not so big, but I've been seeing a lot of brands that are tentatively trying it. So I think one of the interesting ones is Country Road. So Country Road, when they first started, they did a great story in print. And when they first started, they were more than half of their production was in Australia.
Yeah.
So a lot of their manufacturing was in Australia and then obviously the 90s came around, fast fashion came in and they did what all the other ones went offshore. But I've noticed over the last couple of years in their story, they've been slowly bringing in like local suppliers to create their stuff. You're also having like RM Williams. So I think recently launched the women's wear boot line
Yeah.
in Australia, which is amazing. But I think there is this push, and going back to the AI and automation, I think there's another one to add to it, which is robotics.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that that is going to create a big push towards, bringing back local manufacturing, because I think there are a lot of people outside the fashion industry who I talk with, and they always think that the biggest reason why, we don't have local manufacturing is because of the cost. And it's like, but then you talk to a lot of people inside the industry and they go, no, no, it's not the cost. The problem is we don't have that talent anymore. There's a skill shortage in Australia. And you're having a lot of people who are going to university or going to TAFE or to a college to study, fashion design. And they're studying fashion design to launch their own label. You know what I mean? They don't want to work at a factory. And I feel personally, and this is, from what I think personally, is that I feel that there's a lot of people who have these negative connotations of what it's like to work in a factory based on our, knowledge of what's happened overseas. But it's never like that. Like, even, I actually have been reading a lot of stories from like businesses who, and, their suppliers overseas, and, how they're very focused on making sure they have a kitchenette and they have like all the necessary things to make their life, to make their work, a workable place. So yeah, there is that sort of area. And I think the other thing that I think I and a lot of retailers are probably, waiting also eagerly for is an interest rate cut. And I'll leave it at that.
Yes, we'd be excited. We'd certainly be excited about that. Thank you for sharing. There's so much excitement there, from AI to local manufacturing, and within AI, so many dynamics. And I'm with you. If anyone's tuning in and you're an expert in this space, reach out to both of us, because we've both got platforms where we want to share your knowledge. Because what I do find with navigating the AI terrain, it's where do you get your information from that's relevant to our industry? There's so much out there. Marketing is fairly easy, but as you've mentioned, around automation and design, and even, model avatars on catwalks, there's so much going on. I mean, it's exciting, but you've got to try and get your head around all of that and bring it into kind of one source of truth, and then start to think, well, how do I apply this to my business, to our world? But certainly moving very swiftly. So yeah, lots to be excited about. Christopher, thank you for joining me today. It's been great to dive into your journey in your industry, and certainly what's happening at Ragtrader. And congratulations to you and to your team for all the amazing work that you do. We really, we utilize it. I know our business utilizes your information on a daily basis, and we share that with all of our clients. So for anyone tuning in that has not tapped into the Ragtrader resource, make sure you do. And Christopher, good luck on what comes next for you, and congratulations on all you've achieved in the last few years.
Thank you so much. No, it has been a whirlwind, but it's been a great whirlwind. And I'm eager for the next venture. Like, there's always a next venture, I think. It's always happening. There's always new things coming in.
Yeah, that's certainly guaranteed. So we'll see you at Ragtrader Live. We'll see you at the next event.
We'll see you at the next event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast. We'd love to keep connected. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Fashion Equipped. Head to our website, fashionequipped.com.au. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with others, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Let's do this together. Let's make the fashion business your business.
This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.